The terribly violent murder of Hollywood filmmaker Rob Reiner and his wife should have been a moment of horror and quiet reflection. That the couple had their throats slit at their Los Angeles home, allegedly by their own mentally disturbed son, makes it even worse. A filmmaker who gave the world beloved classics like Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, A Few Good Men, and This Is Spinal Tap. Instead, it has become something uglier, thanks to the US president. Trump responded to news of Rob Reiner's death with a social media post that is breathtaking in its hostility. Trump suggested that Reiner was consumed by what he called Trump derangement syndrome, or TDS, mocked him even in death, and implied that Rob Reiner's political rage somehow defined his death. Read that again. A sitting US president choosing open venom over restraint, even when a man is no longer alive to respond. Even by Trump's own standards, this seems to have crossed a line, and it surely has if you look at the responses, because this was not bluntness or honesty, and it isn't just Trump haters who say his words showed a lack of grace. And what makes it worse is the context. America has already, as you can see, normalized bile aimed at the dead. We saw it recently with the revolting reactions from the other end of the political spectrum after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Trump's own government cracked down on those celebrating that killing. So you would think the president would rise above it, be the bigger man. He is, after all, the president of the United States. Say a few token words, or maybe even nothing at all, on the death of someone who has spent a lot of time attacking you. But he didn't. Supporters will argue Trump owes no courtesy to a man like Rob Reiner, who spent years relentlessly attacking Trump. But leadership is tested in moments like these. Even Trump's most ardent and loyal supporters have been forced to break their silence and express shock at the president's words, beseeching him to retract, take back his utterances, maybe put it down to a momentary lapse of judgment. But Trump has doubled down on his sentiments, making it clear that this was no flash of anger. This is Trump's world. Many would find the irony staggering. A man who radiates more upfront hostility than any politician in modern history, perhaps, also makes no secret of his desire for a Nobel Peace Prize. It's even more ironic that it hasn't been any of Trump's many actions or words this year, but a condolence post for a dead Hollywood elder that has many saying too much.
Well, I wasn't a fan of his at all. He was a deranged person as far as Trump is concerned. He said he knew it was false. In fact, it's the exact opposite, that I was a friend of Russia, controlled by Russia. You know, it was the Russia hoax. He was one of the people behind it. I think he hurt himself in career-wise. He became like a deranged person, Trump derangement syndrome. So I was not a fan of Rob Reiner at all, in any way, shape, or form. I thought he was very bad for our country. Yeah.
So let's talk about Trump's words, the backlash, and what this says about modern-day America. Adele Malka-Nazarian is an American media personality and a political analyst. Welcome, Adele. David K. Johnston is author, The Making of Donald Trump. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner. He's also known Rob Reiner for more than 37 years. Welcome, David. And also Irina Sukerman is a human rights and political analyst based in New York. Irina, welcome. Thank you to all of you for your time. Adele, I'd like to kick it off with you. We've seen...
Guys, I can't hear. Guys, I can't.
Adele, can you hear me?
Guys, I can't hear the broadcast.
Okay. I'm sorry. We'll fix that in just a moment. David, I'll start it off with you in that case. You're someone who's written about Trump. You've known Rob Reiner for close to 4 decades.
It's Trump that I've known, Shiv. I've known Donald for close to 4 decades. I've met Rob Reiner. I've talked with him, but I'm not a friend of his, but I know Donald very well.
That was my mistake, David. My apologies. But my question to you is, even with everything we know about Trump, all the standards he's set for, hostile words in inappropriate times, what did you make of this? Did it shock you? Because it certainly has shocked even his close supporters.
Well, I'm glad that it shocked a lot of people. It did not surprise me in the least. This is the Donald I've known and I've covered all these years. Donald has no empathy for anyone. He sees himself as this special person who, as he said just recently, he runs the whole world. He has these delusional visions of himself because of the horrible, horrible household in which he grew up. So while Joe Biden and Barack Obama and others issued sympathetic, graceful statements, we get this from Donald Trump. Yes. And by the way, when Charlie Kirk, the right-wing antagonist who Trump spoke about when he was assassinated, when he was killed, Rob Reiner issued the kind of graceful comment you would expect, that no one should be killed over their political views. So this goes right to the heart of who Donald is. He is all about one thing, Donald.
Irina, what did you think of Trump's words, but especially the reactions to it? To those of us watching from afar, it is unusual to see even staunch MAGA supporters practically pleading with Trump and telling him that he's crossed a line.
Thank you so much. Well, there's a saying, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. As you pointed out, this was a good occasion to exercise restraint. Donald Trump, as the sitting US president, is not obligated to comment on every criminal incident that takes place across the country. And it's no surprise that Hollywood directors and personalities tend to be more left-wing, nor do I think that his criticism of Trump's politics regarding Russia was entirely unfair. There are many on the right who also criticize Donald Trump's apparent accommodations of Putin's demands on Ukraine. And I think any American citizen can feel free to disagree and to question this policy that doesn't make Reiner deranged, nor does it make his opinion particularly important. What is the unfortunate outcome of this incident? First of all, it's extremely unkind to the surviving family of Rob Reiner and his wife, including their daughter. And second, it presents an image of the US president as a very petty person, obsessed with personal vindictiveness and not with leading and uniting the country, especially after tragic incidents. And that's not a good message either to the American people, to our allies abroad, or to the enemies who may use this opportunity to create further divisions.
At a time when he's trying to mediate between countries, this is the literal opposite of being statesman-like. Adele, were you shocked by this? Because Trump had a chance to kind of walk back his words, but he kind of doubled down and said, no, I meant them very much.
So thank you for having me on. I wasn't surprised. I have to say President Trump's response was emotionally charged and unmistakably his own style, direct, unvarnished, and deeply personal. But I have to say that the death of Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle, was a profound tragedy. And you have to keep in mind, regardless of what happens on a personal level and in a political arena, which is very, very bloody, we know that both figuratively and literally, sadly, Rob Reiner was a creative force. He was a gifted filmmaker who gave us literally pieces of work, The Nanny Bride, the Princess Bride, and a few others that literally shaped American culture. And he was a man who also believed deeply in his political convictions, even when he and I profoundly disagreed. But disagreement in life should never erase dignity in death. And I think that's the moment that needs to give us pause here, right? The anger that we have to remember here, the anger that we have in politics, it doesn't just stay on cable news. We all know this very well. It seeps into our real lives, into real families. We know how political divisiveness has torn families apart. And I think that the true meaning of leadership is to set differences aside in death and to speak with compassion and to remind our country that our shared values and humanity, they're the things that must always come first. So I would look forward to a time where our politics is not so corrosive and divisive as it is today.
That ship may have sailed, but I take your point. David, does this do anything to Trump's support base, or does it sort of galvanize it in some twisted way? Because I have seen people with extreme views who are part of the MAGA identity balk at Trump's words and say, this is not right. Something doesn't, sit well with us with this kind of thing. What do you think?
Well, there is a hardcore level of support for Trump, probably in the neighborhood of a fifth to a quarter of Americans who, no matter what he does, will support him. And they are largely not well-educated people and not graceful people. But among those who have voted for Trump, we're seeing his popularity decline. He's now in the approval ratings in the 30s in every poll that isn't blatantly Republican poll. And I think you're going to see more of that slippage, though it's going to be based much more on American economics and rising prices than it will be on these kinds of graceless and despicable remarks. And this is something, by the way, in my household we've talked about. Donald has said in the past he hates me more than any other journalist. And one of my children said, well, when you die, one thing's predictable, Dad. Donald will say, good.
Yeah.
You have a long life. We don't want to switch at the pun. That's horrible, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, not for years. Let's just say not for years. But, but Adele, he's the president of the United States. It's sometimes easy to forget that. And I'm wondering, with all the many different battles that he's fighting, metaphorically, of course, across the world, do you think world leaders, this is, after all, a Hollywood director we're talking about, it's something which is very much a domestic American story. But Rob Reiner was known across the world, obviously. We know him well here in India. Do you think world leaders will be looking at this as well and thinking, something's changed?
So thank you for that. I think that all of Hollywood is international. It's never domestic because American culture through the silver screen is truly a global phenomenon with tremendous impact across the world, right? And Bollywood similarly is doing the same thing across the world. It's really making amazing strides. So I think that, of course, you're going to have world leaders that are going to, of course, balk at that they would never speak that way about a deceased icon as such. But I'm not saying I'm defending what was stated at all. I actually would do things very differently if I was commander-in-chief. I would not say such a thing about anyone. But if you want to see where he's coming from, I think he was, to be honest with you, firing a warning shot that when political disagreement is fueled by rage, that dehumanization and constant escalation, it can tip into something far darker. We know here that, unfortunately, Rob Reiner and Michelle Reiner's son was not doing well mental health-wise and had drug addiction issues. And we don't know what his motive was, but apparently reports said that he had gotten into a fight with his father the evening before at a Christmas party, which may have caused him to go over the edge. But I think it was more of him trying to politicize Rob Reiner's death and use it for a political purpose to warn his detractors not to be so vocal and have so-called Trump derangement syndrome. That's his style of doing things. Again, I would do things differently if I were commander-in-chief. But
it's very clear. Again, a huge understatement. But the fact that Trump takes things very personally, he clearly holds a grudge. A death of a person is not going to be enough for him to, be mature about it and put those things aside. But Irina, like I keep saying, this is, after all, the US president. He's a man who globally calls many shots. What signal does this send out? God knows that for over a year now, global leaders have been getting used to Trump's world, as they call it, interpreting his even non-political utterances as signals of how to navigate and handle Donald Trump. Do you think there's something in this as well? He's just uncompromising when it comes to people who attack him.
I think this sends a message that the president of the US is somebody easy to manipulate emotionally. If you want to get into his graces, all you need to flatter him. And if you need to get him going on something, you can say, and you can criticize him publicly or disagree with him, and that will be sufficient to set him off. And that's something that U.S. adversaries, or for that matter, domestic politicians, can use very clearly. And I want to contrast Donald Trump's reaction with the Republican Senator Ted Cruz, who is also a very conservative politician, arguably much more so than Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Actually, he's faced a lot of criticism from within his own party and also externally, and he was a former presidential candidate. His comments were extremely gracious and extremely graceful, despite the fact it's very clear he probably disagreed with Reiner on many issues and has no problem engaging with people, including celebrities online in social media, and arguing with them very articulately about political issues.
Yes.
That means that within the Republican Party, there isn't necessarily a singular monolithic trend of supporting scorched earth tactics against opponents. There is a contingency of other seasoned politicians who take a different track.
Interesting. I'll give the final word to David. David, no shortage of people on Trump's hate list. Are there others who will sort of shrink back from attacking Trump as a result of this? Or do you think this is just normal now?
Well, this is part of Trump's strategy to control and contain criticism.
Yeah.
He is suing the Pulitzer Prize Board over an award they gave. He is suing the BBC. Donald has said many times, you should not be allowed to write or say anything about him unless he approves. I don't know what more dictatorial comment he could take.
No, you're right. I think we leave it there, but one only wonders what next when it comes to Trump. There's no shortage of people who are his betas, who will call him out, and I'm just wondering what's going to come next from this entire universe. Thank you very much, Adele, David, and Irina. Always a pleasure having you from all the way across the world on this discussion that we're having here in India. Mind you, it's something that matters to us very much because we are currently engaged in something of a trade war with Trump. So many of the things he does are important signaling as to how we here in India and our government navigates the Trump administration as well. So thank you all for joining me. It's a wrap here on India Matters. I'll see you at the same time tomorrow. The buck stops here with Padmaja Joshi is next.